Hvala. Večeras, sad ovo neće biti jako dugo, finalni posmatrač, ako ja uđem u malo veće detalje, duže će biti, ali ja sam pisao članak kako je nauka otkrila Boga. To je izašao u Ministry magazinu. Ako uzmete Ministry i tražite, pa samo kažete kako Danilo Lazić ili kako nauka otkrila Boga, možete ga naći i čitati. On je baziran na tome, na finalnom posmatraču. Tu možete vidjeti više detalja, ali kažu da moram, they say I have to speak in English now. He speaks in Serbian, so I continued. Well, the final observer, that came to more or less conclusion somewhere in late 1980s, early 1990s. I published in the ministry an article on that, on how science discovered God based on that. So if you can get a hold of it, you can. I have a copy, if somebody can copy it, but that's my only copy. So you can read more about it. But in a laboratory, let's say, if we do experiments with electrons and photons, when they set up equipment, each particle has 4 characteristics. Basically, it's mass, position, velocity, and wavelength. So we have to, in advance, decide, make intelligent decision, what do I want to study? And then equipment is set up to do exactly that. An electron will appear and disappear. So what it really boils down to is that an experimenter, a scientist in laboratory, actually calls electron into existence from nothing. That is how it actually works. So they started asking a question, okay, if I, as an experimenter, have called electron into existence, well, who called the equipment into existence? Then who called the laboratory into existence? Or who called the planet into existence? Or who observed, because observe, we don't say call, we observed, then who observed the entire universe into existence? So they started doing studies, and they came up with conclusion there must exist a final observer. So this formula here is, this is a wave function of our universe in which we live, right here. That function, that psi, Greek, represents absolutely all knowledge that exists about our universe here. And this one here is an infinite sequence of series of observations, so wave function by all possible observers. But there is no last term in it. And so if you want to solve the function, you cannot solve it completely because there is no last term. So there lots of debate went on, and so finally one of the mathematicians sat and he calculated and said, yes, a final observer exists, but he is not in the universe about which we are talking. He's looking at from outside, and that makes everything exist at all times. If final observer were just, we used to say, if it just blink an eye, if it just forgets for a millionth of a second, everything would disappear and never come into existence again. So we depend here on this planet, we depend constantly on God having us in his mind. He's seeing us and he's thinking about us. You know, in human terms, we are talking about God. We don't know how God does that. But if he does not, if we are not scientifically speaking in his mind at all times, we would not exist. So that's, you know, so that's criticality of final observer. And on top of it, he had to observe all this. This is observation of all possible events, not just all possible thoughts, all possible events, absolutely everything that can happen in our universe and is happening from beginning to its very end. That all went through mind of the final observer before he created it. Or we simply say in physics, he simply recognized this universe into existence. We do not have anywhere written that God said, "Let there be a universe." He simply made it. He said, "Let it be," for all other life here except universe and human beings. That's why we are inextricably tied with universe, because God did not call us into existence. He said, "For everything, let there be," but he actually made human being. There's a big difference in calling into existence, speaking from physics point of view, calling into existence and actually making it. So that's what we call final observer. That final observer is in absolute present. Here, this is from general theory of relativity, so I use that. We live right here in this dot in the middle, in the center. From here, they call a light cone, because we are limited by speed of light because of our decision in Garden of Eden. So these parts of the universe, our universe here, are absolutely inaccessible to us. That's the other branch here, which we cannot get to it unless we exceed speed of light. If we exceed speed of light, we would become an energy with no guarantee that I would be back the way I am. So, we have put ourselves in a really bad position in it. So this is our future here, and it's written, you can read, and this is our past. We are traveling into future. We cannot go into our past. It's absolutely forbidden for us, not even 1 second go into past, into history. But we are traveling in the future. We see our past, but we cannot see the future in which we are going. So you must depend on final observer at all times, because there is absolutely no way for us to know future. In technology, in military technology, I don't know if all of that, I didn't work on other technologies, but in advanced military technologies, I was able to see reliably up to 30 years in future. But that's it. Once I pass 30 years and I employ all the laws, all the knowledge that we have, and I said, okay, this is right now this way, the only way it can go is this way. So I go to 30 years, my confidence in it is 90%. Once I go past 30 years, confidence drops to 50%, and you cannot put money in 50% confidence. So it's useless, practically. So we cannot see where we are going. So the best thing is depend on final observer, because he sees, to him there is no future and there is no past to final observer. Everything is absolute present. So the final observer has not only seen all our activity, all events, from beginning to end, before universe was created, before we were created, but every thought that, let's say, I thought in my entire life, and every thought that I will think maybe 10 years from now or more, or that I will think in entire eternity, went through mind of God before he created us. That's what implication of final observer. So, that's why Solomon said in Proverbs, there is nothing new under the sun. Because you and I now thinking thoughts, but those are not original thoughts. You and I cannot think original thoughts in absolute sense, because those were already thought by final observer. We are only experiencing that. So that's... So we cannot think that, I just discovered. Well, I may have discovered for me, but it's not really a discovery. I just happened to run into it, as I'm traveling into future, which I cannot see. I stumbled into it. But that is and you can read, probably read. I already said what it is. He is not there. Everything is absolutely well. Argument was a long time whether this is closed or open universe. We now know, based on the latest observation and experiment, that our universe here is open. What we mean by open, it means that it will expand as it is expanding today forever. But in order for it to go on forever, we as an order of intelligence, as an intelligent processing of information, must fill entire universe. So with our processing of information, because we are the administrators of that property. So we are allowed by law of intelligence, if we were to be one, as humankind was one before Tower of Babylon, and today they are working hard on achieving again that condition, but we may never achieve 100% of it, but they'll come close. But if we were able to be one blood, we are already one intelligence, so we could make it together a single intelligent decision and change the way this universe that we live in looks. That's allowed to us under the law. So because we are in a special condition according to physics, we cannot do that because we cannot see the future. And so we would make what seems to be a good decision and good action right now, but the end of it would be bad. And Paul said same thing, says everything is good. We're really speaking in human sense, everything is good, but the end of it is not good. So that's what how we need to look at it. And this, quantum physics and quantum cosmology have unprecedented theological implications. To understand those implications, they've tried other religions, and especially Hinduism. Hinduism was working hard in merging Hindu concept of absoluteness into it, and it didn't work, so they discovered that only Judeo-Christian concept of absolute fits in quantum physics, so they went to read Apostle Paul to see what it all means. Because logic which Paul used writing his epistles is identical to quantum logic. Why? They didn't know anything about quantum, they had no way of knowing, and Paul didn't even know that there's more to the universe than what they thought. But I don't believe it's an accident that he used same logic that science uses today. And he's the only one who has done that. So we can ask questions. Not much about final. Well, the main thing in there you should walk away with is that for every minute portion of time of your life, you depend on a final observer. If he didn't see you and he doesn't, as you know, the blessing in earthly temple, priest said to bless, God bless you, God keep you and bless you, may he turn his face toward you. If he doesn't always have his face turned toward you and me, we would not be here.
Thanks. So for questions, we would prefer, if it's possible, if it can be written down, so we can go through them. You can write them also during the presentation as you go along. If you need a piece of paper or pen, you can raise your hand.
He just reminded me that, what's the basis, main basis of all this. Science has argued forever whether our reality in which we live is local or universal. Einstein, who really changed the way people think, did not believe in universal reality. He was Jew and he believed in local reality, that what we observe and experience only has effect around us, but it isn't so. Experiments that are conducted, and the last one was in 2007 at Azores, to 99.9% of accuracy, determined that our reality in which we live is universal reality, which means that this universe here at 14 billion light years in radius is a single entity. I do this, the entire universe fills it at that very moment without passage of time. So out of that grew all this, lots of questions came, so they had to study and calculate and study and calculate and measure. So it came that the existence of a final observer is a necessity.
Okay, we have lots of questions. Okay, why do you call God final observer and not just God?
Because in physics, in science, it isn't popular. If they say God, many of them will say, but if scientists and professors would simply talk God, they would be ridiculed for it. So they say final observer or absolute intelligence, but when they describe character of it, when they describe the high function, it is God from the Bible. And they do not deny that.
Okay, the next question. Who or what group in science agrees with this idea of having a need of final observer, and are there any arguments against it?
Only arguments are from classical science, because this does not fit into classical science. But classical science is based on very limited assumptions. So 21st century quantum physics, quantum cosmology is supposed to take over in science, so that will be taught in schools rather than classical physics. Even general theory of relativity either will have to be changed quite a bit or will take a little back seat to much better knowledge and better and more advanced theories and more advanced knowledge. All people who work strictly in quantum cosmology, quantum physics, and anthropic cosmological principles, they call that way, and they deal with this. Among them, there is no objection to this approach because it is logical. And in addition, many of them will say this is inexorable logic. That means indefeasible logic. It just is. Nature does not give us, just little cloudy things. Nature is very, very clear. It is either this or there is nothing.
Okay, the way you explain the concept of final observer seems to fit with Calvinism, predeterminism. What are your thoughts on that? Calvin, as we go into, his main was a double predestination. That idea is against laws that govern in this universe. So, I don't find much wrong in anything that Calvin was talking, but that is totally outside laws. That is doesn't fit into laws. And really does not fit into description of this final observer or absolute intelligence. Okay, so I think this question. Okay, right then. So this question I think fits into that as well. Since the final observer has already seen the future, does that mean that future is set in stone? Are there multiple options for the future? Where does the freedom of thought fit into that equation? Okay, so now we're getting back to what we said we have to revisit. Slowly I think we can partially address this now, and after second one we'll...
Yes, God, a final observer or absolute intelligence, everything went through his mind before he created, and he knew not just our thoughts, but thoughts of all created intelligence that would be thought from infinity to infinity. He knew that before he created anything. So that is conclusion. We take mathematically, we take this universe to distant future, to mathematical point in distant future called singularity. Those who, if somebody studies mathematics, you know what singularity means. At singularity, all laws that we know fail to function. But at that point, it said the final observer exists and he loves us. And okay, then it said, well, things don't function exactly the way we think they should if final observer exists. Well, there exists the other condition, the other possibility, but that exists because of our choice here. It exists here. It exists in general because the highest order of intelligence, which in Bible we call Lucifer, rebelled. If he didn't rebel, that other side, other possibility would have never existed. It never would come into existence. So what final observer, or God, let's go God, for us Christians, we say God in physics, in Bible. God did not determine in advance who will be saved and who will not be saved individually. What God said is what predestination is, looking from physics point of view, and I think that it fits better in Bible, and I personally think that way than other, is God said all individuals who accept Jesus Christ as their Savior, acknowledge as their Lord, will be saved. That is what God predetermined before He created us.
So can we maybe just for here, because does the knowledge of God, does God's knowledge of future limit our freedom of choice and possibility, eliminates possibilities?
The possibilities itself will disappear. We have two ways of solving the wave function. One way is the best, the proper way. Mathematically, is we collapse. We call it in mathematics collapse wave function into reality. And that becomes a concrete reality. The other is we can split. And there are done both ways today in science. There are people who do not accept quantum in its fullness. They would like to sort of marry it with classical science, so it's in between. In order to do that, in order to marry it with classical science, you have to split the wave function mathematically. When we split the wave function mathematically, we create two realities, but neither one is a concrete reality. So what at one of the meetings, it went like that, and it looked, so if we continue splitting, pretty soon we'll have an infinite number of realities, and none is a concrete. So one astronomer said, we are nothing but baryonic contaminant adrift on a sea of exotic particles. So I looked at it, and I see that that part, the splitting wave function, is not what leads in successful eternity. And that is what Lucifer, by rebellion, wants to make that available, because there you can exercise your emotions. But if we collapse wave function into reality, emotions do not play any role in it. It cannot, because emotions are unreliable. It has to be an intelligent decision. So that part, I based on physics, and I looked from Bible. It says, God says, I will not your sins I will not remember anymore. So if God forgets something, that absolutely final observer forgets it simply cannot exist in any form. So possibility, I don't know, maybe people believe that there is a possibility, that will be possibility in, in future, in new heaven, new earth, that people will have possibility of thinking or deciding about evil. If you believe that, then I would suggest we reread the Bible much, much better. That does not agree with the characteristics of a final observer. That part does not agree with law of intelligence, and law of intelligence cannot be violated. So intelligent part of it goes into eternity. This does not. And when evil side is completely eliminated, that possibility will also be eliminated, and no one, absolutely no created intelligence will ever be able to bring it back into existence, because final observer has resolved it. Physics says that the other possibility that's not so good and the final observer cannot coexist, and he must solve it at some point in time. He must resolve the issue, and the resolution is that he simply forgets it.
Okay, how does discovering of God's particles affect concept of the final observer?
It does not. God particle or Z boson is, we have no way, until then, this time, we didn't have a way of knowing how do particles gain mass. Because they are wave in its original form, they're waves, but they have mass. So theory predicted a particle called Z boson or God particle that gives weight to all other particles, and they have that particle could be discovered only at energy of 7 trillion electron volts, which that didn't exist until this Hadron Collider in Geneva, in France, on the border of France and Switzerland. They finally went, and it took them 3.5 years. They predicted, based on probability, they'll take 7 years, but they were able to discover it in 3.5 years. It was millions and millions and millions of collisions of protons and antiprotons until they did discover it.
So when you say it doesn't affect, does it mean it doesn't affect it at all, or it affects it in positive or negative way?
No, it only confirms that theory is on the right track. So if that theory gives us implications and talks about something else philosophically or theologically, it is in the right direction.
Okay. So, okay, we have lots of questions here. So, I'm going to try to translate this. Can we see in our universe sounds, I believe some kind of signals, that we as a human race can detect, or I guess something sent by somebody, I assume, some signals that we can detect?
No, absolutely every signal generated, all our world, now we are speaking here, all that is traveling through the universe, nothing ever gets lost. Unless even if it falls into a black hole, eventually it tunnels out in some way. The latest observation or calculations indicate that possibility. But nothing, absolutely nothing gets lost. It can be transformed into another form of energy or mass, but not lost. So all sounds, all signals, everything's there. And if we had proper technology and instruments that we can do that far, that's gone millions and billions of light years away from us. I speak one word, it's going away from us at 300,000 kilometers per second. So it's hard to catch it. But it would be detectable if we had that capability, but there's no way for us, for now or in the foreseeable future, to get that.
They didn't say here, but I think this implies some signal
Oh,
sent from some other
if somebody
beings
thinks of
in universe?
alien beings, same rule. Based on our understanding of law of intelligence, because our reality is universal, which means our universe is a single home. Only one intelligence by law intelligence, only one order of intelligence can occupy any given home. Two orders of intelligences cannot, because that would violate the law of intelligence and everything would disappear. Because that reason for that is because we would have influence on each other, and influences in our universe, as we know, are absolutely forbidden, not only in universe, but trying to influence we among each other. If I try to change your mind or you try to change my mind, you're violating the law that God has established, and I would violate law that God has established before He created the universe.
Okay, thank you very much. So
There are no aliens, period. Don't worry about anybody. I mean, I know that you, at least U.S. military, I'm sure that other ones are preparing weapons, and I've worked with those technologies that that they are expecting that something might be out there. So we have to be ready. But I never believed in it, and I still do not believe, and there is absolutely no way for somebody to be there.
okay, so we are going to finish this set of questions, and then whatever more you have, we are going to keep it for, because we have to have one more presentations. So I think these we can do quickly. Are all physicists Christians when they see this equation of the final observer? So I guess the people involved in this, are they Christians or they're just...
Yeah, all of the 25 leading scientists in quantum cosmology are Christians by origin, but most of them do not go to church. I know one, like Professor Tipler, who was very active in this area and still is. He speaks like Christian. And they ask him, so how come you're talking like that and you write those things, but you're not going to church? And he said, when you Christians learn to love one another, I will join you. So, I do not blame him for that. That is problem in Christianity today.
On same piece of paper, what would the scientists say to dispute your opinion of the final observer, God as final observer?
As of now, because this came out of inflationary universe theory, and that is a leading theory about origin of universe today. The only objections is a matter of preference. There are no really scientific objections to these conclusions, because it is based on sound logic. We cannot carry out experiment and demonstrate that, but logic is sound. So they said, okay, this logic has been proven here. Well, here we cannot prove it experimentally, but because it is going in the right direction, then we are safe to assume that it is that way.
Okay, so does time move faster or slower based on the strength of the gravitational pull?
Science does not know if time flows or moves. That is sort of household, we say, concept. Because we measure time, and we have that time between paychecks, so we think that time travels. For us, it travels, but it really does not. Time, if it were to travel, it is going at speed of light in our universe, but that does not apply anywhere else. But we cannot really prove anything of that. We don't know. Time is an entity which we do not know any particle which we say mediates time. It simply is an entity that you cannot, touch and smell and feel.
Okay, we have a very interesting question. If sin will not be possible after final observer, quote unquote, forgets it, and we are talking after the destruction of sin, why was it possible originally with Lucifer?
That only Lucifer and God know that, absolutely no one else. And no one else will ever know that. So I would not really waste time on it. It is absolutely impossible, scientifically, theologically, or philosophically, to make any conclusion on it. It simply happened at before time. God created time after that, according to Bible. Or if time existed there, we have no idea of knowing how long did time exist, or is it only here or not. But for our experience, time is only 14 billion light years in radius old, and we cannot really talk about any other time because we have no basis for discussion of any other time.
Okay. You said that the theory of predestination is against the law of universe. Which law of the universe do you have in mind? Also, why that law is in contradiction with the theory of predestination? More detailed explanation, please.
It's the law of intelligence as we understand it today. And law of intelligence, if that doesn't agree, then quantum law does not agree with it either. But predestination is a concept, I don't know if before Reformation, well, probably before Reformation, double predestination did not exist. It occurred then, and it is simply based on how people understood what they read. But most likely they didn't read it. When you read when we read the Bible, you have to. It's absolutely an imperative that we forget everything we were ever told, everything we have ever read, and you open the Bible and read like you have never read it before, and you will discover truth. It's guaranteed. I know that, so personally. I now read Bible. I've been reading Bible since I was 5 years old, and I never stopped. And now I read Bible, I forget everything that I was ever told and ever taught, everything. I read, I see what's in it, and then I find, I've read it. I read it 7 times from first page to last page, and never saw that thing. Because I was reading with, with my upbringing in mind. We have to put that aside. And those kind of things develop, when you get all kinds of ideas to sort of direct your line of thinking, direct your logic, or bound in a certain area. Then we come up with ideas that really are a violation of the law. But because we do not know law, we do not know that we are violating the law. So, but now we know in science that it is, and Christianity will do good if they accept that double predestination is against rules in this universe.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this will conclude our first session. We have second session. We have lots of questions. So I don't know if you want to take a break, or if you want him to have. Are you okay?
I can go till tomorrow morning if you want. I don't care.
This obviously gives him energy. So we are going to have a second.
You can get to the other.
Second presentation, and we are going to address some questions that we didn't have time from this first part, and also the questions from second part. Thank you.